at some old school retro hands from the World Poker Tour. I always enjoy watching old hands from the World Poker Tour because some of them are amazingly well played and some of them were not so much. Not because the players were bad, but because nobody knew how to play final tables well back in the day. Simple as that. People were not so good at figuring out how to play according to the independent chip model. People did not understand that, having a big stack is really, really valuable, et cetera, et cetera. People did not understand sometimes the payouts matter a lot, sometimes they do not, depending on how short the short stack is. So, today we are going to open some packs from the Theta Drop NFT. They were kind enough to give me a few of these packs to open up with all of you, and we're going to be using these to analyze hands from the World Poker Tour and, have a story time, answer your questions, whatever you want to do. I'm not sure if the volume's going to work. I'm not sure if the formatting is going to be great, but we are about to find out. We're going to open a pack. Please work. Congratulations. Open the pack. I'd like to open the pack. Here we have it. We have 3 cards here. We have a card with Scott Margerson. Okay, don't know him. Jeb Hutton, I don't know him. And then Faraz Jaka, Poker Coaching Coach. Look at that. We have Poker Coaching Coach Faraz Jaka right there. All right, let's take a look at some of these hands. Let's make sure it's looking right on your end. It's pretty good. Maybe go a little bigger.
Faraz now with Queen Jack in the small blind.
We got Faraz anyway.
650 from Faraz over to Scott. He's got a King 8 of diamonds.
So right here, I do not know the stacks. Unfortunately, some of these WPT hands from back in the day are lacking stack depths. Stack depths are very important here because from the small blind, if you have more chips than the big blind at a final table, you should be raising very, very frequently. If you have fewer chips than the player in the big blind, you should be limping a ton. Definitely with hands like Queen Jack. So this is a spot where Faraz's raise could be pretty bad or perfectly good. Stack depths are very, very important. How to do a poker yesterday. I lost $0 and I won $0. So that's good. I played 0 tournaments, etc., etc. I've been a little bit sick for like the last week. It's been pretty rough. I've been supposed to be making a bunch of poker videos over the last week, and deadline's coming up. I'm going to be recording all day today. It will be painful, but I do not mind. I will do it for all of you. We'll have lots of throat coat tea. It'll help you speak okay. Obviously, call the King 8 of diamonds.
And we'll make the call in position.
And the flop is a King 6 deuce, so kings for Scott. Nothing hitting for Faraz.
So Faraz has all these chips here. That's a mountain of chips. I'm going to presume that this is a lot of chips. They use plaques at whatever final table this is. Plaques are like plastic chips, giant plastic chips. They're kind of fun. The plaques are going to be the biggest chips. Notice Faraz has like 2 big stacks of them, so he's presumably a chip leader here. By the way, I'm not exactly sure stack depths again, but imagine the big blind has like 20 big blinds or fewer. You probably just want to like rip it in with the Queen Jack, and that'll make him fold a ton, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, anyway, I would go for small frequent continuation bet here as the big stack. As the big stack at a final table, you want to bet frequently and usually small because you don't necessarily need to be blasting it by the river. Well, blasting it early in the hand because you'll be able to get all of your money in by the river anyway if you do like bet small, bet big, right? And for that reason, you'll see very, very frequent small continuation bets. What's an NFT pack of cards? WPT released these videos, these moments, in the form of random non-fungible tokens. Essentially, imagine baseball cards, right? You open a pack of baseball cards, you get some random baseball cards. These are poker cards, except for they are videos. Imagine that, okay? All right, anyway, here we go. It's a small frequent continuation.
And that is a texture that Faraz will be betting as the pre-flop raiser. But unless he turns
So here you bet 35% pot. I may even go smaller.
a 9, 10, or ace, I would expect him to slow down.
Yeah,
Well, Scott is just going to call with the top pair.
I somewhat agree with that. While Scott could have top pairs, notice if he has a 6 or a 2, pretty much any card's going to be bad for him on the turn. So you can keep betting a lot of the time in the spot on the turn, but especially if you turn a gut shot, you should keep betting. If it comes like a king or a 6 or a 2, I would not bet. If it comes a 3 or a 4 or 5, I probably wouldn't bet. But I think any other card is okay enough. As a big stack.
And we are going to the...
Notice his opponent here has 5, 10, 500, 1 million, 2 million, 2.5, call it 3 million chips total, okay? So pretty short stacked here. Now, if he's the shortest stack, you have to be a little bit more cautious because the shortest stack by a decent amount doesn't really care if they go broke next. Faraz clearly had like 20 million chips or 15 million chips or something, like a lot, right? So in this scenario, if you bet something like 1 million on the turn and then jam the river for 2 million, I think that's probably okay. You probably want to go a little bit smaller, though. Even like 700 on the turn, that's going to be enough to get a lot of 6s and 2s to fold. And if they do stick around, the 2.5 on the river will get them to fold a lot of the time, too. So that's what I'd be doing in this spot a lot of the time.
Turn. It is a 10 of clubs.
Yeah,
Well, that is pretty much the best possible card for Faraz to double barrel, but instead he elects to check, which I gotta say I'm pretty surprised by.
All right. The only time I would recommend checking here for Faraz is if you think that if you bet, your opponent will shove a lot. Some people will, some people won't. I don't know anything about Scott. But if you bet something like 700 here, most people just call with the vast majority of their hands and they raise almost never. Which is not necessarily correct. You should have some raising range in a lot of spots. But most people do not raise very often in these scenarios at all. So I think I would have gone ahead and bet the turn. Now, if you do check the turn, I got to presume you're going to check shove. Right? This is a spot where when you check turn and your opponent bets any amount, I think check shoving is definitely reasonable. The tough thing is that you're always going to get called by a king here. I mean, obviously, if you bet the turn and jam the river, you always get called by a king too. The thing is, though, is that when you check the turn, your opponent's probably not going to bet with a 6 or a 2, right? So what are they betting the turn with? They're probably betting the turn with a lot of kings and nothing. If they have nothing, though, you're actually in okay shape, right? Do you even need to raise the turn if they have nothing? You can check call, check river, and maybe win sometimes. Seems kind of weird. I think I probably would just prefer to bet here, but I get the idea of checking, looking to check shove if you think that will give you a lot of fold equity. But I think if Scott is good, and again, I don't know anything about Scott, but if Scott is good, he should have mostly a pretty polarized range here. Like, I don't think he's going to bet 6-5 in this spot and then fold it to a shove. It doesn't make sense, right? Just let him check, and try to get to the showdown.
850,000 from Scott over to Faraz.
Solid bet.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, Faraz might just check raise bluff all in here, and Scott...
I think this is a reasonable line. No, Scott, call. I have the nuts. I call. Easy call here.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I got top pair, and I'm the short stack. I call.
Wow.
I was wondering why Faraz checked that turn, and now it makes much more sense.
I will say that whenever Faraz checks turn looking to check shove, you really want to think your opponent's going to be betting pretty thin for value that will fold to a shove, or they're going to like just overly fold a hand like king 5, which I don't think anybody is. I mean, you see Scott just snap called the king 8, right? So I'm not in love with the shove in this spot. I think I'd rather just bet turn and jam river, unless you think Scott's going to jam over you on the turn. We talk about this a lot in my tournament masterclass at pokercoaching.com, where on the turn, playing with stack depths roughly like this, you really don't want to bet a hand like queen jack on the turn and then have to fold it to a shove. That is a disaster. Because you have a lot of equity, right? You have solid, 20-ish% equity, worst case. Usually you have more, because a queen or jack will be good sometimes. So you really do not want to bet turn and then fold to a shove. But clearly in this spot, if your opponent's going to be betting very polarized, it doesn't work out so well.
I like the play. It didn't work out here, but if your opponent has a 6 or deuce and bets the turn, they're almost certainly going to fold to your shove.
That's the problem, though. They're not going to bet a 6 or a 2.
Here we go. River card. No.
All right, then. Let's see another hand. The back button's not functioning. Maybe click refresh. Why is the back button not functioning? Well, here we go. Here's the three most recent cards we got, so that's lucky. Look, there's David Peters, best player in the world. All right, let's take a look at this hand from Well, let's take a look at this hand from Faraz. We'll see what Faraz did here.
Will it be the night for Faraz Jaka to be a WPT champion this time? He's going to look down at a 7-5.
And now Faraz will complete on the button. Scott.
They are heads up. This is a spot where it's very important that you play very different strategies based on many things. First things first, what is the actual structure of the final table? Some final tables have a big blind ante all the time. Some do not. Some take away the big blind ante when you get heads up. That alone, if you're playing heads up with a big blind ante, you should limp a ton from the button. Like, you can't fold anything. You cannot fold any 2 cards. Because you got to realize you have to put in half a big blind to try to win 3 big blinds. So what you're saying is, by limping, I think I will realize at least 18% equity in position, which obviously you will with anything, right? So you have to make sure you're limping with a lot of good hands, and then you're raising a lot of medium-ish strength hands. But not like medium hands like the Queen 8 offsuit, but medium hands like, you know, King Jack suited and stuff like that. Hands that are like pretty good and can call a 3-bet. Notice here, his opponent, Scott, who we just played against, has a bunch of chips now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. So he has like 25 million chips, give or take.
Checks 10-5 in the big.
We'll see what he does. These are kind of irrelevant.
Flop is a king 7-8, so 7s for Faraz. Nothing for Scott.
Yeah, just some backdoor draws for Scott here. But
Faraz is a shorty now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. 8 million, 10 million, something like that. So Faraz is in bad shape.
Faraz in the lead with bottom pair, checks this back.
I probably bet flop.
Turn is a 9. So Scott, open-ended to the 10. Faraz with bottom pair and a gut shot to the 6.
Let's talk about this. Why bet the flop with the 7-5? I think you want to bet the flop with the 7-5 because a lot of turns are going to be really bad for you. And whatever your opponent has some equity, right? So like in this scenario on the flop, if Faraz bets, the 10-5 is just going to fold. Or imagine, you know, like even a better hand, like whatever, 10-5 of clubs, backdoor draw, backdoor straight draw. It's not in a good spot, right? And as long as you think your opponent's not going to raise you all that often, which again, most people drastically underraise, you can bet way more often than the GTO strategy recommends. And I have to imagine GTO probably just bets this hand anyway, because it is very, very vulnerable to being outdrawn. So going for a small bet there I think would be nice. But whatever. I get the idea. Marginal made hand, check, check. I'd rather check like Queen 7 than 7-5 though, I think, because Queen 7 peels a queen, you're thrilled. Whereas when 7-5 peels a 7, sometimes you still lose, right? To random straights and whatnot.
Were he to hit it, Scott would have the higher straight. Scott betting 650,000.
Ooh, bumping it up.
Into Faraz,
Obviously call.
who will make this call.
Down to the river we go. It's an ace. Doesn't change anything.
Well, Scott can only win by betting now.
Ooh, I think he has to,
And so
right?
if he chooses to bet, the real decision is about sizing.
This might be no, you gotta bet.
3 million.
And he's going way over pot. He's betting 3 million. Now
I love it. I love it. This is a spot where Scott needs to consider a few things. Again, we discussed this thoroughly in the tournament masterclass at pokercoaching.com. On the river, you want to have a bet for value range for a small bet size, like half pot. You want to have a bet for value with a big bet size, like big, like all in. I mean, this is close to for all in for Faraz. You want to have a check calling range, a check folding range, and a check raise all in range. Which hands want to check raise for value? Well, the nuts, right? Volume on the video is very loud. Okay, we'll turn it down a little bit. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback, James. I appreciate it. Okay, the check raise range on the river wants to be the nuts for like queen high flushes, maybe jack high flushes, and then ideally some blockers to those hands. So queen high of diamonds, jack high of diamonds, but ideally you want to have those hands that can actually win at the showdown sometimes. So a hand like jack 7 with the jack of diamonds or the queen of diamonds. That could be pretty good. Maybe an 8 with the queen of diamonds or the jack of diamonds. Like queen 8, right? That'd be a pretty good hand to have. I don't think you want to do it with the 10-5 though, because the nice thing about having a pair with the high diamond is that when it goes check, check, you win a lot of the time, right? But with 10-5, if you check the river and your opponent checks, you'd lose a lot of the time, right? So this is not a good hand to check, raise, bluff all in. It's actually quite a pretty bad hand to check, raise, bluff all in, because if it goes check, check, you lose. So that means we need to bet this hand. Should we bet big or should we bet small? To be fair, it probably doesn't matter all that much. I gotta presume if we're check raising some, like you definitely want to bet big with like random queen of diamonds X, right? If you have those, we gotta realize you don't have a ton of those. Like maybe you have queen 10 and queen jack. I guess those are pretty good to bet because they block straights, they block flushes, right? So those would be pretty good to bet big. So this may slot into a small bet size, but whatever, big bet's good. I mean, I think this is definitely a spot to go for a nice chunky bet. You just have to make sure you do it with some nuts too. A lot of people make the blunder of only doing this for value against good players or only doing it as a bluff against good players. And you got to make sure you're somewhat balanced.
I will say, Vince, that when you go that big over pot, it tends to polarize your range towards very strong and very weak hands. So Faraz here with bottom pair is actually considering this.
So what should Faraz call with facing an overbet for a lot of his chips? Looks like he'll have 2 million or something left, I guess. He wants to block flushes. His opponent's saying I have a flush or a straight, right? So do you block flushes? No. Do you block straights? No, not really. So it's probably a fold. That said, if you know anything about your opponent, maybe you find a hero call. Like I said, some players will literally only overpot with bluffs. Well, in that case, call, because you beat the bluffs, right? You have a problem here where some people will turn random hands like, I don't even know, 10-7 with a 10 of diamonds into a bluff. Some people would do that. That'd be really bad for you. That'd be a way better check raise all in hand, but, you know, that'd be pretty bad for you if that happened. I mean, I would literally never call here unless I had some insane read. Let's see if Faraz has insane reads.
Faraz would be a hero if he should do it.
Oh, wow.
He's going for the hero here, and he's going to love himself.
My goodness.
Just makes a tremendous call.
I want to watch that again. Watch this guy's eyes.
Going for the hero here, and he's going to love himself.
My goodness.
Just makes a
Okay, don't try to bluff Faraz with the overbets, I guess. Amasa says, you don't know if anybody said it yet, but thank you for the video. You're very welcome. I'm happy to be here with all of you today going through these fun poker hands. I don't know, if you all enjoy these fun poker hands, let me know. Click the like button, click subscribe button. Back buttons. Oh, back button works now. Good. That was a ridiculous call by Faraz, but it works out. Faraz makes some ridiculous. When I say ridiculous, I mean plays that are definitely not GTO approved. But they seem to work out more often than not. So good job to him. Congrats. All right. Here we have a hand. Let's see what's happening.
Josh K with a pair of kings. The real hand makes it a $500,000. And Jeb Hutton with a seductive little 9, 8 of hearts. Will make the call.
I think we're heads up. Looks like a seductive hand.
And here is the flop with the 9-7-4 for 2 hearts.
Look at this monster flop for Jeb. Josh, meanwhile, has to feel pretty good about his kings.
Josh betting 600,000. Jeb with the 4 flush and top pair.
Come on.
And he's going to go all in.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, he has a massive hand here.
So wait, this guy led? Yeah, Jeb led. No. Josh, okay, so Josh continuation bet, Jeb check shoved.
Massive
Okay.
hand here.
Let's talk about check shoving on this board. What do you want to check shove all in for like a chunky bet? It's not like egregiously big, but what do you want to check raise with in this spot? I think you want to check raise your best hands, like 9-7, 9-7s, although you probably 3-bet those pre-flop. Pocket 4s. Do you have 7-4 suited? Sure. Do you have 7-4 offsuit? Probably not. Do you have 9-4 suited? Sure. 9-4 offsuit? Probably not. So we don't actually have all that many value hands. We may want to check raise stuff like ace-9, because that is one of our best value hands, but is vulnerable to being outdrawn. Maybe stuff like king-9 and queen-9 even can check shove. So the question is 9-8 good enough to shove? Probably not. You also want to check raise with some high equity draws that are in amazing shape, like 10-8 of hearts, right? So that's a reasonable check shove. You probably want to check raise some junkier draws too that can't profitably check call. Maybe like queen jack may want to check, or jack 10 may want to check shove. 10-8 offsuit maybe. Maybe with a heart for backdoor equity, that's probably reasonable. The question is should you even have a shoving range here, or should you mostly check min raise? I don't hate check min raise. I think check min raising here is pretty nice with a lot of your range because, remember, let's go back. Let's just scroll back just a little bit. The bet was for 600, right? And the stacks are 3.2. So if you check raise to, let's say, 1.2 with a hand like 10-6, can you fold to the shove? And the answer is obviously yes, right? So right here, I think a play that a lot of the best players have started making is to no longer check shove in these spots, but instead to check raise small to like 1.2 or 1.3, like a minimum raise. That applies a lot of pressure to all your opponent's unpaired hands. And if your opponent continuations bets too much, as a lot of people do, then they're going to overfold, right? So this is a spot where I think you can get away with check min raising some, and therefore you also just slot in a lot of value hands in the check min raising range, like ace 9, right? Stuff like that. Pocket or 9-7 suited. So you check min raise everything. So you check min raise your best of 8 made hands, your high equity draws, and then a few junky bluffs that are not quite good enough to call. Maybe even stuff like Queen of Hearts Jack can check min raise, which may seem insane, but I think it's a pretty good play. It becomes an even better play as your opponent bets smaller and smaller. I realize here Josh bet 600 into 1.1, so half-ish pot. If you bet more like 30% pot, I'd like a check min raise more, because he's just going to be betting with a wider range and you get to apply a lot more pressure. And the reason I'm saying you want to check min raise over check shove in some spots like this is because when you check shove, you can't check shove 10-6 offsuit, right? You can't check shove the queen jack offsuit. And you also can't call those hands. So by check min raising, you give yourself a chance to play those hands in a profitable manner, which is good. You get to play a wider range in a profitable manner. A lot of poker, at the end of the day, is really just about fully realizing your equity with as wide of a range as possible. And when your options here are check call, check fold, or check shove, you can't really play the 10-6 offsuit all that profitably. But if you can check min raise, well, now all of a sudden you have a line to play it profitably, which means you need to balance that one. And a nice way to balance that line is to just check min raise everything. Because when you have ace 9 and your opponent sticks around, whatever, you don't really care. Obviously, you're going broke with it. When you have a good draw, you don't really care because you have a good draw. And when you have junk, great, you get to play it profitably, and then your opponent can fold out to a shove. Or you can fold out to it if your opponent does shove you. So I probably would have checked min raise in the spot. This is something almost no one did even a few years ago, but setting with solvers will help you find some of these spots. So anyway, he check shoves, he gets called, whatever, he loses, wins, whatever. I guess he wins. All right. Did Faraz end up winning? I don't know. You can Google it. You can Google any poker player's name, and it'll come right up. You Google Faraz Jaka, WPT, it'll tell you their results. Edward said you achieved 4 final tables last week. Good job, good work. One of the holders of my NFT, called Deck of Degeneracy, Varncast, actually took second place in a tournament yesterday for, I think, $60,000 online, a $200 tournament. Good job, good work. Will you end up turning this video into an NFT one day? Probably not. What I have turned into an NFT, though, is my poker tournament action. I have this, call it a problem. It's a good problem to have, where a lot of you want action to my poker tournaments. I play a lot of high buy-in poker tournaments, and I'm not, looking to sell action so much, but I'm happy to get back to my fans. So how do I do this in a way that is somewhat fair, somewhat randomly distributed, etc.? I made an NFT for that. So far, we've given away a bunch of action. I think we've paid back about $120,000 to holders of my NFT. It's called Deck of Degeneracy. You can search deckofdegeneracy.com. It'll come right up. And if you hold those NFTs, you are live to win. Also, we're giving away a bunch of NFT art. We're giving away an in real life party in Las Vegas on June 30th. It's going to be an all-day party for holders of a Royal Flush. We have a party in New York City on June 24th for holders of that as well. So anyway, lots of fun. Let's take a look at some more poker hands. I want to open the pack. How do I open the pack? Here we go. Here we have Derek Walters, Alex Foxen, and Matthew Waxman. All right. Let's see what we got.
Derek Walters raised up ace-jack offsuit on the button. Pat made the call in the big blind with 6-4 offsuit. And he's flopped a gut shot here, but not...
All right, so I'm not sure of the stack depths at all. But again, so this is a button raise, big blind call at a final table unless you're the big stack. You don't really want to defend the really junky hands that would normally be okay defends if there were no payouts, just because you really, really, really do not want to go broke at a final table. Now, if you are the big stack, you certainly can defend wider because your opponent, the initial raiser, won't be able to continuation bet nearly as often because they don't want to go broke. So this could be a fine defend or it could be way too loose. You have to make sure you're adjusting to the payouts one way or the other. If you are the big stack here, if Patrick's the big stack, you're looking to check raise a lot. And this is definitely a fine spot to check raise because unless Derek has a king or a flush draw, he's in a bad spot.
Not much else. He's going to check. So Derek will take a stab.
175.
I love a raise.
Pat will make this call. Little bit of a loose call, so I wonder if he intends to bluff the river if he ends up missing and the turn goes check, check.
I hope so.
7 on the turn. Pat's going to check.
Easy check.
Derek also going to check. He's out in front. 3 on the river. Nothing.
Pretty bad river for the 6-4 to bluff, because notice now literally every draw missed. Always a bummer, right? So here, what do you want to have? You want to have a hand that does not block your opponent's auto folds. What hands are automatically going to fold? Queen high, jack high. You don't want to have a queen or a jack. Heart draws, diamond draws. You don't really want to have a heart or a diamond, right? Because if you have a heart or a diamond, you block some of their hands that will automatically fold to a river bet. So here you want to be betting with hands that lack showdown value that also do not block obvious draws. I don't remember which 6-4 he had, but if it's... I mean, look, to be fair, pretty much any 6-4 probably wants to bluff here, and you probably want to go big. You want to play your hand as if you had a king or a 3. On the river, if you have a king or a 3, you want to be betting very big.
Nothing happening.
So Pat has...
All right, so pot's 875. Patrick has perfectly good hand to bluff. Good enough, you know. Six of diamonds is not great. To be fair, the 6 and the 4... Well, the 4 kind of blocks ace 4 and 5-4, but whatever. 6 of diamonds blocks a few hands, but I would bluff this hand for sure, and I would bet big. This is a spot where I think you definitely do not want to bet small. Some people screw this up and bet small. If you bet small, you're going to get called by all the ace high. You have to ask, what am I trying to get to fold? You're trying to get an under pair to the king to fold, like pocket 6s, and you're trying, well, pocket 5s, I guess. You block 6s and 4s, don't you? And you're trying to get ace high to fold. So the only way you can get that to happen is to go big.
Has indeed missed.
Maybe all in. Even.
Not
like, I don't know stacks, but like if say your opponent has 1.5 million, this would be a pretty good spot to overbet with your 3s and your air balls.
Terrible card for him to bluff. Shouldn't improve Derek in any meaningful way.
Raise.
There's a lot of stuff that Pat can...
Does he said raise? You can't raise. Let's see.
Raise.
No one says raise. Okay. So funny enough, whenever, I mean, maybe the guy doesn't know poker terminology very well, but whenever someone does misuse wrong terminology or say the wrong thing, bet the wrong amount, whatever, that's usually a sign of either a really good hand or a really bad hand. The tough thing is that here, his bet, if it's big, indicates that anyway, so it may not mean anything. Usually, whenever people say the wrong word, or say the wrong size, or put in the wrong amount of chips, whatever, it usually indicates nervousness. Another thing, though, is we're at a final table, so people are going to be nervous, so I would not read too much into that.
There's a lot of stuff that Pat can have that has missed here, including...
I do not like 650. You're never going to get pocket queens to fold. You're never going to get an ace to fold, which is exactly what you're targeting.
Hearts, 4-5, 6-4, 6-5.
This is just an easy call, by the way, with the ace high. Yeah, you block some diamonds that may want to bluff, but, like, whatever. There are a lot of busted draws available. Easy call, easy call. Especially if you know your opponent's not going to check raise 6-4 and 6-5 and hands like that, then it's even an easier call.
Well, it's easy to say when you see those 5 cards that we're seeing.
Right.
But right now, he's been bet 650. And this would be a heck of a call if you'd ever call this with ace high.
And I'd like to...
Let's talk about the worst hand you should call with here, because I think ace high is actually pretty easy. Should you call queen high? I think if you have queen jack of spades here, it's actually a pretty good call. Because you don't block any of the draws, right? Even so look, people always ask, like, where do you find hero calls? This is a beautiful spot to find a hero call with some pretty bad hands, because what draws that missed need to bluff the river? Think about it. What needs to bluff the river that missed? Busted straight draws, busted flush draws that don't have an ace, right? So if, like, say Patrick does have a hand like ace 4 that he check calls flop, check turn. You think he really needs to bluff the river? Like, not really. He wins a lot of the time. He has an easy check call, right? So ace high doesn't really need to bluff the river. So does queen high need to bluff the river? Well, kind of like ace high doesn't really, neither does queen. So that means a hand like jack high and worse needs to bluff the river. Notice there's not a whole lot of jack high that Patrick would check call the flop with, unless it was exactly hearts or diamonds, right? So imagine Derek was sitting here with a heart or a diamond. That's a jack, maybe. I mean, I guess you don't really want to have a heart or diamond there because you don't want to block their draws. But you know what I'm saying here, right? Like, it's really, really easy for Patrick to have nothing. And nothing is like jack high and worse. So here, this is a really, really good spot to find pretty loose hero calls. And this is where you'll find good players call it like jack high, and their opponent shows the 6 high, and you're like, what in the world just happened here? Ace high is easy call, though.
Point out that I love the way Pat is playing this hand.
He's doing it.
Bluff the river, and wow, what a call by Derek.
Whoa! Call of the night right there.
Notice here, if Patrick just check raises flop, bet small and turn, jams river, I think that'd be sweet. It's exactly what you do with the king. Maybe even do it with a 3 sometimes if you feel inclined. You probably shouldn't have all that many 3s, but you're not worried about Derek having so many 3s. I definitely think it's a spot where Patrick should have check raised flop, though, and that would have almost certainly worked out. Whereas played this way, especially when like a stone brick comes on the river, it's really, really easy for your opponent just to hero call, and you can't do anything about it, right? I mean, give them that hand, they're going to call. Okay. Let's take a look at a hand from Alex Fox, and he gets in there and mixes it up.
And Ryan Tosick picking up 10s on the very first hand of heads up. Makes it 400,000 to go. Alex with a pretty decent king-queen will make this call.
2 very good players. Look at this. Is this the MetaMask symbol? I think this is the MetaMask symbol. That's amazing.
And we see a ace, 3, 6, 2 hard flop.
Alex will check, and Ryan's going to bet the 10s. Bets 400.
This is a spot where you cannot fold the king-queen. A lot of people think that you should find nitty folds or something heads up. This is a great way to get run over. You absolutely cannot go around folding decent high cards, even on the ace high board, heads up, because your opponent's going to be raising a lot and continuation betting a lot. Okay? Cannot fold. Don't want to raise
Alex sticking around with his call. Let's see if Alex gets lucky here with a king or a queen. Yes, he hits a king of hearts.
Lucky. Do you think, what does it mean when you put your opponent's head on your head? Is that like one of those old school warriors who like wins the battle and chops off their opponent's head and puts it on top of their head? Easy check on the turn.
So he's out in front with the kings now. He's going to check it.
King of hearts is really bad for Ryan.
And Ryan will slow down check as well, going to the river. And it's another heart. 7 of hearts. This gives Alex the absolute nuts.
All right, so again, I don't know stack depth. So let's think about what Alex wants to do with various parts of his range. What does he want to be checking with? This is a fun one. I think he wants to check with lots of 1 pair hands, because those can win at the showdown. What does he want to bluff with? I mean, I guess if he had like 5-4. No, that's a straight. What am I saying? The reason I'm going through this exercise is because it's actually kind of hard to find some bluffs. I mean, think about what you would even want to bluff here. There's like no bluffs. Maybe just like 4-3. Blocking random 2-pair hero calls. 4-3 no heart. 6-5 no heart. I guess. Because if you think about it, like what bluffs does he have? I mean, everything got there. Backdoor flush came in. I mean, maybe he would have like pocket 5s. I guess that'd be an okay hand to bluff. Interesting spot. Very, very, very tough spot to find bluffs. And I bet most people drastically under bluff here. Anyway, what hands do you want to check? You probably just want to check like medium to low flushes, right? And 2 pairs and 1 pair, right? Like an ace if you have it. Tough spot for sure. I mean, obviously you should bet this hand. I say obviously. That said, you maybe do want to put this hand in check raise range sometimes. Especially if you think your opponent will bluff too frequently or value bet too frequently when you check. This is a very good hand to check shove. What hands want to check shove bluff? I don't know. Yeah, again, it's hard to find hands that want to check shove bluff. Should you bluff with 8-7? Well, it's really, really hard to have 8-7 here, right? Like, because remember, he had to call a flop. He had to bet the flop, check, turn. I guess he could have 8-7. Oh, no. Alex can't have 8-7. I'm asking which hand should Alex bet. Alex check called the flop. He has no 8-7s on this board. Like, if he had 8 of hearts, 7 of diamonds, he's just going to get out of the way. If he had 8-7 offsuit, he would get out of the way. Tough link is still broken. I don't know how to fix these links. Should probably figure that out, huh? The tough thing about life and business is that some things are relatively low value. And unfortunately, figuring out that, which will take me an hour, is relatively low value because one person will click the link anyway. They can figure it out if they need to find it. All right. You should check raises sometimes, but obviously value betting it sometimes is fine too. It's very, very nice against good players to put some Queen of Hearts in your checking range, though. And I think this is a good one to check with, because in this spot, you make it less likely that he has a showdown value hand, right? Whenever you have the king or any other pair, it's more likely Ryan has an unpaired hand, right? And if Ryan has an unpaired hand, he's going to be more inclined to bluff. So I think this is one you probably do want to check, looking to check raise, but obviously betting is fine too.
And he's going to check the nuts.
Nice check.
Nice check. Ryan obviously value bets this hand.
Whoa, what is this? There's 1.6 million in the pot, and he just bet 2.4 million. This seems
Aggressive overbet. I think this is a spot where if your opponent's no good, I actually don't mind it. Especially if they think that you are splashy bluffy. That was a splashy looking bet, to be fair. I would think that was probably a little bit weak. Let's go back and watch that bet. Do you think this bet, ignore his cards obviously, do you think this bet is strong or weak? Let's just watch how he puts his money in the pot.
And it's another heart. 7 of hearts. This gives Alex the absolute nuts. And he's going to check the nuts.
Quick check, by the way, by Alex. Whenever I'm watching the best players in the world play, by the way, I mean, you realize I'm playing in tournaments for these players on a regular basis. I am looking for things like that. That was like a pretty quick check there on the river. To be fair, he should check here a lot on the river in general, because Ryan has a lot of queens and jacks in his range of hearts. But it's a spot where some people take their time. Look at this bet.
That's nice check. Whoa, what is this? There's 1.6 million in the pot, and he just bet 2.4 million. This seems like a strange hand to bet 1.5 times the size of the pot with.
Why would this be a strange hand? It's a strange hand because when you blast it, you'll actually start to make some bad flushes fold. Although, to be fair, Alex probably ain't folding any flushes. But you're definitely not going to get like hero call by 2 pair anymore. This is a spot where you want to be betting big with nuts, like the queen, and then some bluffs, right? Typically, that's how you structure your range. Again, we discussed this thoroughly in the Tournament Masterclass. I feel like a broken record, but a lot of these spots come up all the time, and we discuss all the common spots in the Tournament Masterclass. Did he do this to try to look bluffy on purpose? I mean, sure. I mean, obviously, he thinks he has the best hand by a mile. Was that a string bet? No. I'll show you what a string bet is. Notice here.
And he's going to
a string bet is when you make 2 motions to put your chips into the pot.
Check the nuts.
Nice check.
Okay, he grabbed this pile of chips and pushed them all into the pot. That's his bet. He cannot go back and get more chips anymore. Does he go back and get any more chips? No.
Whoa.
He goes here, he puts in his pile, and then he separates them nicely into a 500k chip stack, and then the rest, or whatever the best size is. Oh, this is a 2 million chip stack, and then whatever the rest is. That is not a string bet. If he went and put in more money, and then went back to his big stack and got more money, that would be a string bet. Look, you got to realize these players don't know how to. Both of these players are very, 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 very good players. Okay, they know how to play well. They're not going to make any sort of silly blunder like not knowing how to put their chips in the pot. Easy. I love the play by Alex, by the way. I don't know how deep they are, but you're going to be making a very, very big bet here on the river.
Oh, what is this? There's 1.6 million in the pot, and he just bet 2.4 million. This seems like a strange hand to bet 1.5 times the size of the pot with.
Now we know he has the 10 of hearts. Pretty good flush, of course, but up against the nuts. And if you want to study...
You know, what bluffs does Alex have to check shove the river? I don't know. I mean, look, I already tell you, I don't know. I probably don't check shove the river nearly often enough here. It feels insane to me to put in a check raise bluff here with anything. Because it's so easy for Ryan to have the nuts, right? When Ryan bets big on the river like this, he is announcing, I have the queen of hearts or nothing. But Alex has the queen of hearts sometimes, as you see, right? So because he has the queen of hearts sometimes, he needs to find some bluffs. I honestly have no clue what you want to bluff with here. Because what's going to hero call you? The only thing that's going to hero call you is the jack of hearts. They decided to go for the bet, right? So, and obviously you can't block the jack of hearts, because then you have an easy check call. So, I don't know what you're supposed to bluff with here. Run it through the solver. I'm sure solver picks some hands. I don't know. I can guarantee you, though, when you bet big on the river like Ryan does, and then you get jammed, unless your opponent's just bonkers, you got to fold. Now, Alex is capable of being bonkers, But this is a spot where I'm sure people are going to drastically underbluff.
Acting. Just look at Alex right now.
Yeah, he can't believe his luck.
He's thinking you have the jack.
5.5.
Boom. 5.5. There's the raise
Small
with the
raise.
nuts.
And Ryan suddenly regrets betting that much.
So interesting spot. Let's think about this. Because I would have probably, I mean, I don't know stack depths again. But I feel like this is probably a spot where you want to rip it in a lot. But, when you have the queen, you block their whole calling range, right? So that means that he has maybe the jack or nothing. If he has nothing, you don't really care. But if he has the jack, will he call the all-in? I gotta presume most people just find the hero call the jack heads up against somebody like Alex. I'm kind of surprised he went for this size, because in reality, I gotta presume Ryan's range is like literally exactly the jack of hearts or maybe the 10 of hearts in this spot. Weird scenario.
Can you lay this down at this point, though? You got third best flush.
Well, your opponent either has the queen of hearts or a bluff. You're not really worried about the jack of hearts.
Correct.
This is the first one I used all tournament.
Now he's going to take time, try to figure this out.
1 second. Deuce, 4, 5, 6. Deuce, 4, 5, 6. Deuce, 4, 5, 6. 8, 9. Jack. Deuce of hearts, 3-bet. 4 hearts, 3-bet. 5 hearts, 3-bet. There's 6 left.
You carry the 1 and...
Oh no, he is going to make this call. He's going to hate himself in the morning.
Oh man, a major setback for Ryan Tossick right away in this heads-up match.
Good play by Alex. A lot of people just bet the river, but like we determined here, this is a great hand to check because you block the hero calling range with the king, and you have the nuts. Good play by Alex. I'm glad we would have found it. How can you make a bet look like a bluff? Let's go back to this. Let's go back to his bet. And I'll tell you some things that look bluffy to me.
And Ryan will slow down check as well, going to the river. And it's another heart. 7 of hearts. This gives Alex the absolute nuts.
So watch Ryan here. So look, I don't know if they edited based on time, but he kind of quickly put out a big bet. That looks suspect to begin with, because when you have the nut hand, you don't just want to like, ooh, pop your money into the pot, right? That's what very straightforward players do. Ryan's obviously a good, strong player. Also, look at how he kind of like throws his chips into the pot. That's usually something people do to try to intimidate you, right? So he's doing all of these things that people normally do if they're on like the base level. Well, not the base level, one level above the base level, right? Base level is just like, oh, I got the nuts. I put my money in the pot. Take that. Most people realize that looks ridiculous. So they will do that with their weak hands, right? Now, perhaps Ryan does this with every hand. I don't know. Again, I'm not necessarily even commenting on Ryan here. I'm commenting on what some people do. And I mean, just watch. This to me, assuming timing is accurate, because they maybe clip the timing to make it shorter. This is what people often do with bluffs, in my mind. If they're like decent, you know. But again, Ryan's very, very good.
Gonna check the nuts.
Nice check.
Grabs his chips, plays with his chips, snap, blast in, 1.5 times pot.
Whoa,
Bam.
what is this? There's 1.6
Watch
million
his
in the
face.
pot, and he just bet
Watch his
2.4
face.
million. This,
You see that? You see that as well? Watch his face. He does this old gulp, gulp. Oh my God, I hope you don't call me.
whoa, what is this? There's 1.6 million in the pot, and he just bet 2.
See, look, why is he moving his face like this? Again, I don't know if he is necessarily doing this type of thing with all of his range. Maybe he's praying he doesn't get snap raised. To be fair, Alex will never snap raising. He's going to take his time like he did. So this is a spot where a few things happen very quickly right there that would make me think that this is bluff heavy. Right? And certainly a good play whenever you're making a probably too wide over pot on the river. Now he says the mouth matters. I mean, look, you got to realize again, I kind of ignore physical reads against most good players unless they just like pile them on right here all at the same time. To be fair though, if you asked me in game, does this world-class player do this with the nuts or nothing? I don't know. I have no clue. This might be the first time he's ever done this in his life, which is when you want to start doing kind of weird things like this because your opponent will have a sample size of 0 whenever you do it. right? You don't want to do this stuff all the time because then it becomes very, very clear to anybody who's paying attention what you're doing. Like imagine he does this every time with bluffs or with nuts or with too thin of value bets, then that changes the scenario entirely. But if you've never done this in your life, if I had to subconsciously think this means something, I would subconsciously think this is weak, which may sway your decision one way or the other when it comes to finding a hero call with any random 2 of hearts or whatever. All right, cool hand. We'll go through one more hand, maybe call it a day. Bill Seymour, my first poker coach, says old school versus new school. Easy fold against old school players. That's for sure. All right, we have one more hand from Matthew Waxman. Let's take a look.
They say the first pot's unlucky.
I think I took like 12th place in this tournament.
Darren Elias with King, Queen of Hearts, though. He is the chip leader, 4-time champion, and he will move it up to 35,000 to go.
And I would not expect Darren to return very much of Matt's table talk.
And we're Matt Waxman, poker pro out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Tough player, has a miserable-looking 10-6, but will make this call.
All right,
Just enough hand.
Interesting spot right off the bat. Darren raises small blind. Small blind should not be raising a ton at final tables unless you're the big stack. As the big stack, you should raise a ton. They said he was the big stack, so he should be raising a ton. If it was the medium stack, though, he should be limping a ton. How can you make a bet but look like a bluff? I literally just said, I rewind the video 3 minutes.
And to take a flop in position when you're in the big blind, and flop an open-ended straight draw.
But Darren hits top pair, and he's going to check it.
Yeah, I like.
Okay, as the big stack, you should be continuation betting a ton. However, this is a spot where if Darren is raising close to his entire range, not 100%, but whatever, 60, 70, 80%, then this board should nail Matthew because Matthew is highly incentivized to be kind of tight as a medium stack facing a raise. So you should do a lot of checking on this type of board, but I think as the big stack, you probably just want to bet small. Matthew does get out of line. He does bluff sometimes. Is he going to run a bluff here against Darren Elias? I don't know. We'll see. This is obviously a pretty reasonable bluffing hand.
Like this check from Darren. That's a board where you don't really want to see a lot of money go in when you have one pair.
Matt Waxman, open-ended, will bet 35,000.
How do we feel about the small bet? I got to presume Darren's range should be lacking a lot of the best hands, like 2 pairs and stuff. Although maybe he just puts a check raise in with those. I think you probably want to bet bigger in Matthew's shoes, I think. You probably want to be a little bit more polarized betting here because as the medium stack, you really, really, really don't want to get check raised, right? So that means that when you do bet, you want to make sure your range can withstand a check raise better. So how do you withstand a check raise better? Well, you make your range more polarized, right? Either you have nothing or you have really good hands that don't mind getting check raised. So I think here you probably just want to bet a little bit bigger. Again, I don't really know stack depths. Maybe this bet's fine. As you're shorter, the bet I think gets a little bit better and better. But if you're anywhere near deep stacked at all, I think you want to go a little bit bigger. Now, the question becomes, should you check raise this one? Again, stack depths are very important here. As you get shallower, you just want to put it in. If you are deeper, though, I think calling's reasonable. One thing you'll see, though, is that... I mean, this is a convoluted spot because I'm not exactly sure what pre-flop ranges look like. But this hand's probably a hand you do want to put a check raise in because it's almost always good, but it's really vulnerable. Feels gross getting it all in, though, doesn't it?
Get tricky and re-raise here. Top pair, straight draw possibility, and he will just call it. Here we go. Good pot.
Good pot.
Turn is an 8 there. Waxman hits his straight.
Darren now needs a 10 in order to seize this hand from Matt.
This is a really bad card, obviously. Ace is not so bad, I suppose, but 8's particularly bad because now if you had a 2 pair, you're already losing. If you had a 10, you're losing. So you're only beating flush draws now, right? So this card is really, really bad. Is it a check fold on the turn? I don't know about that. It might be a check call turn, check fold river.
Otherwise, his straight to the queen is going to be good and take down some chips here.
Waxman, he could check it and play it tricky, but no, he's going to put the chips out, 85,000.
And I don't expect Darren to fold yet. He still has top pair with the gut shot, and your opponent can have a lot of hands in the big blind that see a flop here. Whoa.
Gonna make this fold.
That was surprising. I guess Darren wins WPTs by seeing through people's cards. Jeez.
I don't mind the fold. I mean, look, in that spot, you have to ask, what is the medium stack likely to bet on the turn? The player who should be incentivized to be kind of cautious. Well, it should be good hands and draws again, right? Same thing that they have that I said on the turn. So, or on the flop, right? So if Matthew is betting the turn very polarized, that's going to be straights, maybe 2 pairs, and bluffs. Notice on this board, though, a lot of the bluffs are very much blocked by the board because if he has queen X of clubs, he doesn't need to bet, or 8X of clubs, he doesn't need to bet, right? Maybe you want to bet 8X of clubs because it's so bad. But in this spot, it's kind of hard to find logical bluffs. The only bluffs that make sense are like Ace X of clubs, which may 3-bet pre-flop, King X of clubs, I guess. And then where are we looking at? 8X, 7X, 6X, 5X? I mean, sure, you could have those, but there aren't that many combinations of those. Compare that to all the number of hands with a random 10 in them. Plus, consider on the river, if you check the river and jams the river or bets the river, then, you know, you're going to end up having to fold anyway. So, that's that. Some people are talking about Phil Hellmuth. Maybe he angled on the table. Look, I've not seen any videos from this apparently insane streamer game. You'll find that insane things happen when you're playing with players who are not necessarily poker players. But I'm going to talk about the rules really quickly of what happens at the showdown. On the showdown, somebody bets. They table their hand. You take your cards, put them in towards the muck, and then you realize, oh my God, I had the best hand. But your cards are still not in the muck, but across the fold line. You typically, in a cash game, are allowed to get your cards, turn them face up. It's usually okay. Imagine on the river, you check, your opponent bets, you call, they table their hand, you turn your hand face up, and you throw your cards into the muck, even though they're the winner. If anybody at the table saw your hand, and then you quickly realize you folded the best hand face up and somebody else saw them, and you saw them, and you say, I had the, whatever, ace 9 of whatever, you know, the suits, whatever, like there they are, they clearly are, right? You can also get your cards back. A lot of people think that when the cards hit the muck, they are definitively dead. That is not necessarily true. Okay? Well, I admit that Phil Hellmuth angled some amateurs. Again, I've not seen the video. If it's a good hand, my editors will find the video, and I'm sure we'll cover it on YouTube. But a lot of people think that whenever you put your hand across the betting line at the river, then it's very clearly dead. But in cash games, rules are super duper lax. And if you have the best hand and you did not mean to muck it, then, or you mucked it incorrectly, but it's like clearly the winning hand sitting there, then the rules protect the player who screwed up by giving up the pot. Face up means that the camera could see the cards. In Nevada and California, that plays. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it works with whole card cameras. I gotta presume with whole card cameras, those don't play. I've seen plenty of hands mucked that were the winners on whole card cameras. But a lot of people are like real sticklers, thinking if your cards touch the muck, they're dead. Definitely not true. Definitely not true. Cards are identifiable and easily retrievable. Yeah, Canuck has it here. If the cards are identifiable, what does identifiable mean? I don't exactly know. I do know if I know my cards and the guy next to me knows my cards, and those are the 2 cards sitting right there face down, you can usually get those cards back. If they're face up in any way whatsoever, you can get them back. If the camera overhead saw them, you can easily get them back. So anyway, a lot of people don't know the rules of poker. It's very important. It's very important, very important. I cannot make this any more clear to you. When you play any game at a high level, any game, not just poker, you need to clearly know the rules. I went to a hockey game the other day, and I learned some rules about hockey that I did not know, about going about setting lines at various pauses, being the home team. That's a little advantage you have. I didn't know that, because I'm not a hockey player, never played hockey. But you can be very sure every player on the hockey team knows that, right? And it's important to know the rules of the game whenever you are playing a game. Omar says it's bad etiquette. Etiquette's a tough thing. Etiquette essentially means these are rules that you have determined should be the rule, but they're not actually the rule. Why should the rules that you think should be rules matter? And I can tell you the answer, they shouldn't. For example, various angle shoots. People are within the rules to angle shoot. They are. People are within the rules to angle shoot. In some spots, depending on what it is. Now, should you do it? Probably not. If all you care about, though, is winning the absolute most money as possible, which is not necessarily all you should care about. If you care about life, equity, happiness, making friends, etc., getting invited to private games, you should not be doing such things, right? Say you are in a spot on the river, though, and you would have, like, this is your pot. It's clearly supposed to be your pot, but you screwed up, and you can fix it because it's half a second later, and it will cost you $50,000 if you don't do it. Well, then you should probably collect your $50,000. So anyway, understand that a lot of people are real sticklers for etiquette. I have a whole section in one of my books on etiquette. I'll tell you one that pisses me off. Actually, it doesn't piss me off. It used to. I realize people just don't know what they're doing. It's important to realize most people just don't know what they're doing. Imagine you go all in on the river, somebody else calls. Actually, you don't go all in. You put somebody else all in. Okay? I bet an amount that puts my opponent all in, they call before the river. Some people will say, good luck all in, to the player who's all in. Every time. They'll always do that. What are they also saying with that action? They're saying, to me, the guy who put the other player all in, I hope you lose. Could you imagine looking at your opponent after they put their money in, and they announce to their opponent, I hope you lose. Not their opponent, just a random guy sitting at the table. You're not even involved in the hand. I hope you lose. That would be preposterous, right? But if you're telling one player good luck, you're saying, I hope you win this pot. Okay? So, should that bother you? Should it bother you if your opponent looks directly at your face and says, I hope you lose? Not even your opponent, again, somebody not even in the hand. No, it shouldn't. It's horrible etiquette. But they don't even realize it's bad etiquette because they, in their mind, think the most detrimental thing in life is to lose an all-in, right? Even though in reality, you're going to lose a lot of all-ins. So, you got to understand that etiquette is nice, relevant, good. It's certainly good for making good connections. You don't want to have bad etiquette, right? And at the same time, you're allowed to do whatever you want. You're allowed to say whatever you want as long as it's within the rules. The rules are clearly defined. The rules for retrieving your cards are often clearly defined or somewhat murky, but usually they favor the player who made a blunder, right? Yoda says, if you say good luck all in, it's usually because you like the person who is at risk of leaving the table, and it brings good vibes to the table. Well, it certainly brings bad vibes to the other person who is against them. Don't you think? Maybe you do. Maybe you never even considered it. I'll tell you, most people who do such things never even consider it. You never even consider the idea that something you say that's nice to someone could be blatantly offensive to someone else. But it is. It's very, very important that you realize that you should not let most things bother you. In order to succeed at most things in life, you have to have somewhat thick skin. Omar says, like slow rolling. Slow rolling should not bother you. It shouldn't. You're allowed to take an extra 5 seconds to look at your hand and confirm you have the hand you had and whatever. Now, should you do it purposely to tilt your opponents? Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. I personally don't. But plenty of players out there do purposely slow roll their opponents on a regular basis. Either because they think it's funny, because they want to try to tilt people who are feeble-minded, etc., etc. So that's that. Scott says, you've wished players good luck at the table. Maybe you'll not do that anymore. I mean, maybe not, right? I mean, you always have to ask, what are you actually saying? I gotta presume 95% of poker players don't view it like I take it. But I can guarantee you, if you tell my opponent good luck, you want them to win. And not me. Which is fine. I don't care if you want me to win or not. I'm not going to be offended at you. I've learned to not care about such things. Younger Jonathan Little cared about etiquette way more than older Jonathan Little does. I mean, I make a point to present myself incredibly well at the poker table to the best of my ability, just because I think that's the right thing to do. But just because I think it's the right thing to do does not mean that it is required. It's important to realize that you are not required to do much at the poker table. A beautiful example of this, as a good, strong professional poker player, I think it is my job to make the recreational players happy and give them a good experience. I'm not mean to the recreational players at all, even if I don't like them. Why? Because if they stop playing, I stop making money. May seem a little bit predatory to some extent. But to be fair, if it's all good players at the table, it's not going to work out for you. So anyway, you need to make sure you understand what is required, what is demanded, etc., etc. Don't get offended. Don't get outraged. So many people in today's world just want to be offended and outraged. And I'm telling you, it's not good for you. It's not good for life. It's not good for emotional stability. And in order to play poker well, you need to have decently good emotional stability. Dan says, whenever someone says good luck to his opponent, he says, what about me? Yeah, maybe I should. Maybe I should start doing that. That's going to be it for today. Hope you enjoyed today's show. You never know where the show's going to end up. You never know where the show's going to end up, but today we ended up on etiquette. Who'd have thought? That's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, do me a favor, click the like and subscribe button. Huge thanks to Theta Drop and WPT for providing these clips for us to go through. They were a lot of fun. Lots and lots of fun hands. And maybe we'll do it again in the future. If you like this show, let me know. If you don't like the show, maybe we won't do it. It's up to you. This show is, to some extent, guided by all of you. I hope you have a great, productive week. It's Monday morning. Make the most of your opportunities. There's only 1 week of May 2nd, 2022, and I hope you make the most of it. Thank you for being here. Hit the like and subscribe buttons, etc., etc. Click all the buttons. The buttons are good for me. And you want to get to where people cannot mash your buttons at the poker table. If you have no buttons to mash, well then, nothing will bother you. You just show up and play good poker. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.